Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk about, well, the sad decline of Paul Hindemith. Now, I have a personal sort of thing about Hindemith because I wrote my first master's thesis on the affair Hindemith, which was quite the thing when Furtwängler performed Mathis der Maler and the Nazis got all hysterical, and he resigned all of his posts in protest. And it was a great topic for a master's thesis because it had everything. It had contemporary artists. It had ferment within European society. It had Nazis marching around. I mean, it was full of hot button issues. But the bottom line is that Hindemith's reputation has been completely, well, I wouldn't say its reputation has changed, except it's just become unimportant, which I find really rather sad because he was a fantastic composer, a wonderful composer. But in his lifetime, he was really considered the equivalent, at least as good as Stravinsky or Bartók or any of the great early 20th century composers, Shostakovich, the first half of the 20th century, because Hindemith died in the early 1960s. And his music was performed everywhere. One of Bernstein's young people's concerts used the Hindemith concert music for strings and brass. People recorded it. William Steinberg, did that classic Boston Symphony recording of the Mathis der Maler Symphony and the concert music. And it was his second version of the Mathis der Maler Symphony. He recorded it earlier in Pittsburgh. People did it. And particularly, I think, the work that we need to talk about is the Mathis der Maler Symphony. Because, first of all, it's a very beautiful work. It really is. And the last time I heard it was with Lorin Maazel and the New York Philharmonic a bazillion years ago, 2 decades, 3 decades ago, I don't know. And I haven't heard it since. I played it a couple of times because I was in charge of repertoire, and I made sure that we played it. But it doesn't get performed the way it used to be. When people wanted a post-romantic German symphony for their programs, Mathis der Maler was the one they chose. If you look at the list of people who recorded it in the 60s and 70s, Bernstein did it. Actually, I think he did it twice as well, didn't he? Maybe, I don't know. Ormandy did it. Like I said, Steinberg did it. Constantine Silvestri did it with the Bournemouth Symphony. When you needed a contemporary work of the German school, that was your go-to piece. That and the symphonic metamorphosis of themes by Weber, not Webern, Weber, which is absolutely delicious, which Zell did, and Bernstein did, and Ormandy did, and everybody did. It was such a popular work. That still has a bit of popularity out there. But if you wanted a symphony, symphony, big deal, symphony, right? German symphony. Wow, the German symphony. Mathis der Maler was your go-to piece. It astonishes me that there's so little attention being given to Hindemith's orchestral works, and that one in particular, because it is a masterpiece, and it's often ravishing. It really has beautiful, beautiful things in it. Herbert Blomstedt was the last major conductor to devote some real love to Hindemith. And then there was also the Tortelier series on Chandos. But all of this is a couple of decades ago, and there hasn't been anything since. Nothing of note. And no conductor seemed to be championing Hindemith's music. One of the things also, I think one of the issues that in dealing with Hindemith is that he was considered to be the antidote to the second Viennese school. He famously, had this early experimental phase where he went really crazy, and it was as atonal as makes no difference, although it wasn't 12-tone in the Schoenbergian sense. And then he returned to tonality because he believed he was making this rapprochement between modern art and approachability, that music that did not in some way engage the listener was a waste of time. That was his basic theory. He believed that an artist had a responsibility to his country, to his audience, to write music that was not dumbing down. It could be difficult, but it had to be approachable in some way. And it may be that very compromise is what's counted against him, because nowadays we've kind of made our peace with the Second Viennese School, haven't we? I mean, at least with Berg, right? I mean, his operas, Vautsekot Lulu, are repertory pieces. The violin concerto is standard stuff. Even Schoenberg, I mean, early Schoenberg, of course, has always been in the repertoire. You know, Verklärte der Nacht and Derlieder and Pelléas et Mélisande, and you know, those are all happening works. The First Chamber Symphony are okay. Webern is widely respected, even if he isn't always played. And so we're not afraid of what the Second Viennese School was doing, particularly since they failed. That's the key, isn't it? Because now that everybody has returned to tonality, Hindemith's position, which was very, very striking in the first half of the 20th century, no longer seems terribly interesting. Everybody's writing tonal music again, and some people, maybe audiences feel or conductors feel, that if you're going to do tonality, you might just do the latest tonality thing, the latest flavor of the month, and not worry about doing Hindemith. And you know, there's a quality issue here, because Hindemith's craftsmanship was at an extremely high level, and his music has character and personality, and you could tell who it is. You may not always like the personality, but you could tell who it is, and there's tons of it. His chamber music is always played because he wrote things for, like, you know, heckelphones and tubas and sonatas for instruments no one cares about. So his get performed, and you know, his music's never going to disappear. I mean, never entirely, but boy, has it lost its canonic status. And it was there. It was really there. I mean, Mathis der Maler was a canonic German symphony. And it's impossible to overstress that fact, because we talk about how difficult it is. I mean, I've been talking recently about how difficult the classical canon and how ossified it is, you know, how limited it is and how hard it is to break into it. And one of the things that's worth sort of thinking about is, yeah, you can get into it, but what if you're only into it temporarily? That happens too. And this is the absolute paradigmatic case of somebody who temporarily made it into the canon and seems to have slipped out again. The same is true of his violin concerto. Oistrakh recorded it. Isaac Stern recorded it. A beautiful work, a major work. Nobody touches it anymore. Nobody. It's really striking. And, you know, I don't really have the answers to why it happened or how it happened, but it's a shame, because Hindemith's music is what he intended it to be, which is approachable, but not stupid. I mean, not pandering. It has integrity. It has honesty. It has characteristic style, and it's worth hearing, eminently worth hearing. And it would really behoove all of us if his works were once again appreciated and returned to some currency, because they're good, solid musical creations that I think are you know, you may think it's a little snobbish, but I would say yes, they do participate in a movement towards elevated taste. And there's something to be said for that. There really is, when you do it as well as he did it. So there you have it, my friends. Keep on listening. Go listen to some Hindemith. It's beautiful stuff. It really is. Take care.